China. The land with 1.4 billion people, the Great Wall of China, and an over-controlling government has suddenly become the absolute dictator of the world. They really pulled a zero to hero just to get to this point, going from manufacturing plastic toys to owning literally half the planet and dominating in every major industry. China isn't just big, it's an economic tank rolling over the global market with insane levels of production, exports and economic influence. The country is literally the world's factory, producing more than 30% of global manufacturing output, meaning that if China stopped making stuff for even a week, half the planet would be in literal scrambles. By then, she would be just watching from the sidelines as the world collapses. But to really understand how China has gotten to this place, we must have a quick look into the history of China. And oh boy, is that something. China is one of the world's oldest civilizations, dating back over 4,000 years. And throughout that time, it has gone through dynasties, revolutions, and internal conflicts. From the Qin dynasty, which gave us the first emperor and the Great Wall, to the Tang and Song dynasties, which basically invented half the stuff the world uses today, like paper money and gunpowder. China has always been a powerhouse of innovation. Fast forward to the Opium Wars, where Britain basically said, "We're going to sell you drugs, and there's nothing you can do about it." China went through a century of humiliation, getting carved up by foreign powers. But then, in 1949, Mao Zedong and the Communist Party took over, flipped the table, and turned China into the socialist state we know today. After a couple of questionable economic policies, Deng Xiaoping came in during the late 20th century and said, what if we just, made money? And that's when China opened up to the world and became the economic beast we see today. One of the biggest reasons why China is so highly advanced and powerful today is literally Western stupidity. Big corporations move production there to save a few bucks, failing to realise that they were handing over the blueprint to their own technology. You fucking idiots. And it's not even like China was hiding its strategy. They straight up required foreign companies to share their technology if they wanted access to the Chinese market. And guess what? The West just went along with it. Now, instead of just assembling iPhones, China manufactures its own chips, builds its own high-speed trains, and dominates industries like solar energy, EVs, and 5G. And the best part? Now that China has all the tech and infrastructure, it doesn't even need Western companies anymore. It's kicking them out, setting up its own supply chains, and making sure that if anyone wants to do business, they play by China's rules. After decades of rapid industrialization, aggressive economic expansion, and some next-level long-term planning, China has transformed itself into a global superpower. It boasts the world's second-largest economy, a military that's expanding at an insane rate, and an infrastructure network so advanced that some Western countries look like they're stuck in the 1950s. China didn't just catch up to the world, it overtook much of it. The country has lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, created some of the world's biggest tech companies, and built a network of cities so futuristic that they look straight out of a sci-fi movie. High-speed rail. China has more of it than the rest of the world combined. Smart cities, AI-driven surveillance, renewable energy projects. China is out here flexing its ability to build the future, while others are still debating infrastructure budgets. And let's talk about Africa, because while Western countries were busy bickering over regulations and elections, China was out there making deals, funding railways, highways, ports and power plants. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, China has poured trillions into global infrastructure, securing influence over more than 150 countries. Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, even parts of Europe. China has locked down strategic resources, secured trade routes, and established itself as the lender of choice for countries in need of development. This isn't just investment, this is long-term economic control disguised as help. On paper, China looks unstoppable, but here's the thing, China's success comes with a dark side. Beneath the towering skyscrapers and record-breaking GDP growth, there are major cracks forming in the system. The Chinese economy is legit built on a house of cards. Yes, China has the second largest economy in the world, but a huge chunk of that growth is propped up by massive debt and a collapsing real estate market. The government spent decades pumping out infrastructure projects to keep the economy running. But now, there are entire ghost cities, brand new skyscrapers, roads and shopping malls with no people in them. Developers like Evergrande have defaulted on billions, causing a real estate crisis that could bring down major parts of the economy. And the population, that's another problem. China is aging fast, and thanks to the one-child policy from decades ago, there simply aren't enough young workers to sustain the country's future. Factories are struggling to find employees, the birth rate is plummeting, and unlike Western countries, China can't just import workers because it refuses to open its borders to mass immigration for obvious reasons. China has one of the most advanced surveillance states in human history. Cameras track your every move, AI monitors your online activity, and if you step out of line, the government will literally downgrade your citizen score through the infamous social credit system. Human rights? We don't do that. China loves to talk about progress and modernization, but when it comes to human rights, it's a different story. The country has been accused of running massive internment camps for Uyghur Muslims, where reports of forced labour, re-education programs, and constant surveillance have sparked international backlash. And protests? Good luck with that. When Hong Kong erupted in pro-democracy protests, China cracked down hard, imposing laws that essentially erased Hong Kong's independence overnight. It has the world's largest navy, and it's making sure everyone knows it. The South China Sea? China basically acts like it owns the whole thing, building military bases on artificial islands and clashing with other countries over territory. Taiwan. Yeah, China has made it very clear that it plans to take it back, by force, if necessary. Even if you load up DeepSeek and ask if Taiwan is independent, the AI is programmed to tell you that it's a part of China. How obvious can it really be? So the conclusion. At first glance, China looks like an unstoppable superpower, and in many ways it is. It has the economic strength, the infrastructure, the technology, and the global influence to shape the world for decades to come. But at the same time, it's walking a very fine line. A shaky economy, an aging population, an increasingly authoritarian government, and growing tensions with the West will come back to haunt China. The question isn't if these issues will cause problems, it's when. Because while China might be the world's most powerful dictatorship, history has shown that every empire has its breaking point.